Welcome to Speaking of Adoption, where we dive into the heart of adoption, sharing real stories, breaking down myths, and shining a light on how adoption can be done with love, integrity, and respect. Whether you're a birth parent, adoptive family, adoptee, or just someone who wants to learn more, this is a space for honest conversations and meaningful connections. Join us as we explore the beautiful, complex, and life-changing world of ethical adoption. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of Speaking of Adoption. I'm your host, Mandy, and I'm so excited you're here with us to open up about honest conversations about adoption. So I thought it made the most sense to kick things off by going straight to the person who started it all. So here with me today is our director, Yvonne Johanson. So before we dive into everything, I would love for you to share the purpose behind this podcast and why you wanted to start it.
Okay, so we wanted to do this for so long, and we're so excited that the stars have finally aligned, and we are finally going to make it happen. And I think the reason that I thought it would be important is because there are so many misconceptions and sometimes hard judgments or harsh judgments surrounding adoption. And through lived experience, I've come to know that people generally aren't trying to be hurtful, but a lot of times we speak about things that we're not educated about, and that's how sometimes we can be hurtful, and adoption is no different. When speaking about adoption, hurtful things can be said because the roles aren't understood, the roles in adoption, and the stories that go along with those roles, and all of the feelings that go along with those things can be misunderstood. And so being so involved in the adoption community for so many years and having adoption play such a big role in my family, I feel like I'm invested in this personally as well because I have so many people that I love and care about that adoption plays a big role in their lives. And so we're hoping that by honestly discussing these topics, we can help birth parents, adoptive parents, and adoptees feel more understood and honored in their life stories that include adoption.
Yeah, we're super excited, so let's get started. And tell me a little bit about your journey with adoption 29 years ago.
So 31 years ago now, I happened onto a TV show that it was actually called The Dying Rooms, and it was telling the stories of orphans and in this foreign country. And immediately I was kind of glued to the TV, even though it was so hard to watch and it was so heartbreaking. And I was changed in that moment. I could not stop thinking about what I had seen and what I had heard. And it planted a seed in my heart that would begin to grow, and 2 years later almost would bring our most wonderful blessing into our lives.
So what touched you so much about that show and what stuck with you?
I think the idea of seeing children that were all alone, nobody to even hold a bottle. Bottles were propped. Babies that weren't big enough to wipe their eyes, that had flies on their face. And I just could not forget those images. And I was watching and realizing what these children were going through. I thought about my own children. And although we aren't and weren't wealthy, we had a lot of extra love to give. I mean, I can hold a bottle, I can change a diaper, I can love a baby, And we had a little bit of extra food at the end of our meals and a little bit of extra space. And just most importantly, we had extra love to give. And I started thinking about how that could possibly make a difference in somebody's life. And that was kind of the beginning of me considering adoption. And not even considering adoption yet at this point. I just wondered what I could do. And because I had felt that so strongly, I felt like I was being pushed in a direction, and I wasn't quite sure what the direction was yet. But I kept thinking about it and kind of ruminating on it. And I came to become really curious about adoption and about the processes, because I actually knew nothing about adoption at that point. So the beginning of my journey started after the show started in the Yellow Pages, I opened the Yellow Pages and looked up adoption, and I saw there were agencies here in Utah, and I started calling them and getting information, and I found out that they offered classes where you could learn about adoption. And so I attended almost every class I could, be available for.
So you started out researching international adoption, and what made you switch to?
Well, the countries that I were looking at, some of them were pretty overwhelming. It would be in country for 6 weeks and those kinds of things. I had 3 children at home. I just thought, I can't even see how this would be an option for us. And I had spoken to one of the women that had taught one of the classes on international adoption. And I said, I'm so sad. I don't think that this is going to be something that we can do. And she said, there's a lot of need here in the States.
So did a light bulb go off a little bit in your head? Like, oh, here?
I have
do it here.
idea. Yeah, I have no idea.
So then where did you go from there?
So I kept going to classes, and I kept learning now more about domestic adoption. And then after about probably 9 months, we had a really crazy summer coming up. And I had talked to my husband, and we decided together that at the end of the summer, we would try to get our home study completed because we had so many things going on. In March, I had taken a training at a local agency, and there was a woman there that had spoken about adoption and her adoption story. I just went up and introduced myself after class and said, I really loved what you said, and thanks so much for sharing a piece of your heart today. And she said, are you interested in adoption? And I said, yeah, I think we are. We're kind of heading in that direction. We're still learning about it. And that was the last time that I spoke with her. That was in March. In July, our phone rang. Somebody had actually saved the message, which was amazing. Now, back in the day, that many years ago, we had an answering machine. And on the answering machine, there was a message from a woman.
So how did she get your information?
From Kathy.
Okay, so Kathy told her about you.
Yeah. Yeah, unbeknownst to me, I had no idea. I was
so
like,
she
probably
probably
want a baby.
So she probably contacted her, and she said, "No, but I might know someone who is interested." Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is crazy. She would remember my name. And so anyway, it was all like this series of miraculous events. And so, the message was, "I got your name, and I have 2 birth moms that are wanting to place their babies for adoption. One's in Las Vegas and one's in Reno, Nevada. And I wondered if you would like to speak with either of them. If you are interested, please give me a call back." And so at that point, I called her back and I spoke to her about both of the situations. She didn't know much. She knew that the birth mom that was in Las Vegas was having a baby boy, and the birth mom in Reno did not know the gender of her baby. I had come to feel like our baby was going to be a boy. I felt very strongly, and I feel very strongly, that these children are known. It's not just a random child that comes your way. It's your child. And it's a very anxious and worried time when you feel like you have a child out there somewhere and you don't know where they are in the world.
And you don't know how to get to them.
Responsibility to find them.
Yeah. Because you didn't have anyone helping you. Like, how were you supposed to get in contact with any of these people? Like, was there anyone to help you with that?
We didn't have an agency yet or anything. I had an idea of a woman that I thought would probably do our home study, but that was all I knew. I didn't know. I didn't have an agency on my side, and so all I knew was just that phone call. So I said that I would talk to the moms, and we can talk about this later about how the mistakes that I made along the way because I wasn't educated, and the mistakes that were made along the way otherwise. But I said that I would talk to the mom in Las Vegas because she was having a boy. And I felt like we were having a boy too. And so I said that I would talk to her, and she said the woman that was with the agency said that she would set up a call and get back to me. And so then she called me later the next day and said, I'm not able to get a hold of her. Would you like to talk to the mom in Reno? And I said, sure, yeah, I would be happy to do that. And so she got a hold of her and we did a call. She asked me to send over some information about our family. So this is back in the day when things were so antiquated. I hand wrote a letter to her, and I made a black and white copy of our family photo, and I faxed it off. And I don't know how she even got it to our birth mom, but somehow she got that before. And then we talked, and I asked her what the most important things were to her. And we talked about that for a little while. I said, and are you okay with a white family? Because we're a really white family. I said,
Yeah.
we don't have any Italian or anything this baby's not going to blend. Is that okay with you? And she said, yes, absolutely. And then we said goodbye, and I didn't know, the next steps at all. So then I got a call back from the agency.
How long was that?
The next day.
Okay.
And she said that she had chosen us and wanted us to adopt her baby. And I immediately panicked a little bit because I realized that I hadn't taken the time before talking to her to discover if this actually was the baby that was meant for us. I felt bad because I felt like I led her on. And now what if it's not right? What if this isn't supposed to be our baby? What if this baby's meant for somebody else? So I felt really, really bad about that. And I felt a little panicked. And I remember thinking, how can I find out? How can I find out? What should I do? And this is back in the day of the newspaper. And so there was a Deseret News sitting on my kitchen table. And I thought, I'm going to look up my horoscope. And I ripped it out. Actually, I still have it.
Oh.
And it said, yours is the chance of a lifetime. And I thought, this is it. This is my answer. So then my next thought was, should I really be placing such a big life decision on a horoscope in the newspaper on my kitchen table? And I felt not a yes or no answer, but I felt an overwhelming love that God had for Elijah and that his worth was so great.
And Elijah is
my son.
Yeah.
And I felt a connection to him immediately. And I was so grateful for that because then I could move forward wholeheartedly, not feeling like there was any pretense or doubt on my part.
And then how long was that process once you matched with her? She chose you guys. When did she deliver? And what did your relationship with her look like from there?
So super crazy crunch time. We had all this stuff going on. And now she's due August 7th. And it's now the 24th of July.
Yeah.
And we don't have a home study. We don't have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we haven't even started. And so I frantically call the woman that I had thought would do our home study. So she does a rush home study and she thought that they would probably induce her.
Yeah.
On Sunday afternoon, I'm packing up. Phone rings and Jack answers it and he brings it to me and he says, she had the baby. I just remember our kids were running around in and out of the house saying to their friends, our baby was born, our baby was born. And they were so, so excited. And we were so excited too. But I looked up a flight and there was one seat left on the last flight to Reno.
And there was no one who was going to meet you at the airport and help you from there? You were just going to meet her on your own?
Yes. So here's the crazy thing. Remember, I didn't really know anything about adoption. And the person that was doing our adoption was not a licensed person. She was in California and they allowed people to facilitate adoption and not be licensed. And so she introduced us, sent over a contract that I had to sign. And the contract said, if this adoption fails for any reason, your money is non-refundable. And then she sent a courier to get a cashier's check for all this money that was going to be non-refundable if something happened. We didn't hear from her. That was kind of the end of her services to our birth mom and to us. And so we were very much alone in the whole process. And again, we didn't know if this was common practice or not because we didn't know anything about adoption. So I get to the hospital and I go up the elevator and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not prepared to meet her. And what am I going to say to her? And how am I going to feel? And I was nervous because I didn't want to hurt her in any way. And so it was interesting to me because when I walked in the room, it all felt so natural. I felt this immense love for her, like almost the love that I have for my children. It was so strong and so intense. And I was so grateful for her and to meet her. And when I walked in the door, she pointed over to Elijah, who was in the bassinet just a few feet away. And she said, well, there's your baby. I've just been tending him for you until you got here. And part of me wanted to run to him, but she was the most important at that moment. And so I went to her and just said, are you okay? That was so scary. Were you scared? It must have hurt. I just was so concerned about her.
That just shows right there how, let's see, how can I word this? Just how amazing you are without the knowledge of adoption, that you knew in that moment already that she was the most important. And even though you were so excited to see your baby and that's why you were there, your heart immediately went to her. And that's why you've been able to create something as beautiful as our agency, is because you have had that in you from the very beginning, just walking in that room.
So then she said I said, do you want to spend some more time with him? And she said, no, I want you to take him to the nursery. And so I asked her if she needed anything, and she said no, and it was getting late. So I went to the nursery and they let me go in. And I remember when I took him out, and I remember looking in his eyes, and he was wide awake, and he looked in my eyes, and I knew it was him. I knew he was mine, and I was his, and that he was the one that was known to be ours. And I was so grateful. So I held him all night long. And at 8:00 in the morning, there's a shift change at the hospital. And
shift changes are scary.
Yes. And so the person that came in knew the legalities more than the night nurse, evidently. And she said, you're not allowed to be in here with him.
You're just a stranger up the street, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, coming in and holding a baby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The only way you can be with him is if he's with her. But she didn't want that hurt. Yeah. And she wanted him to bond with us. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't comfortable for her. And so that meant that I couldn't be with him. So I stood outside the nursery window and looked at him and thought, what am I going to do? And I called, and no help on the other end.
Who did you call?
I called the facilitator that was helping us. And
so at that point, were you thinking this is normal for how adoption goes? Or were you thinking this can't be right, that I'm just here by myself and she's here by herself?
I had no reference whatsoever. Yeah. So it wasn't until later when I kind of got out of the crazy of it all where I thought, wow, that was a really hard experience, and that could have been done better. Yeah. We could have been supported. She could have been supported. We could have had more knowledge. And I didn't know anything, about anything. And so though I went out there knowing he was ours and that she wanted us and trusted us. Okay, she asked me to do this, but am I the good guy or the bad guy? Because I feel like a really bad guy right now. I feel like I'm hurting her. And I feel terrible that my joy is coming from someone else's pain. Now looking back, I realize she didn't receive any support. She could have maybe used some support, not only emotionally, but physically. She could have used some support to recover. She didn't have any recovery time or anything like that.
And you didn't know that you even needed to educate yourself on all the logistics behind everything. That there there's so much that goes into going to the hospital and seeing her and seeing the baby. Like you just thought you could show up and everything would go smoothly.
I was probably the most ignorant adoptive parent in all of history.
Oh, well, I doubt that. I bet there's a lot.
and it kind of set it up for a lot of chaos. But
Yeah.
I actually tell our adoptive families now, lots of hard things can happen throughout the process,
Yeah.
but the most important things happen. They happen. There can be a lot of stuff that happens along the way that's hard, or what is supposed to happen happens. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so keep going.
I was talking to an agency there, or the social worker there that was going to take the relinquishment, and she said that I couldn't take the baby when the baby was released, because that she would have to take him home until paperwork was
The
signed
social
the next
worker?
day.
Or sorry,
No.
you're saying birth mom had
Birth
to take.
mom had to take the baby home. So all of a sudden we're up against this hard deadline, and he's going to be discharged, and they're going to make her take the baby home.
And she didn't want
And
to.
she was not comfortable with
Yeah.
that. It was not what it. And I was devastated that she was so uncomfortable with it, and they were trying to push it on her.
Mm.
So I said, "What are our other options?" And they said foster care, which was devastating.
Yeah.
And a couple of the nurses knew what was going on, and one nurse kept coming in and giving all this crazy advice. And at one point she said, "Well, just walk out with her, and then she can hand you the baby, and you can go." And I'm thinking, "Okay, that might sound like kidnapping to me,
Mhm.
and I don't think I dare to do that. That I was scared. I didn't want to do that, you know."
Yeah.
And so I started working on at foster care, and I'm thinking, how would I ever even know how to find somebody in foster care? And so that same nurse, and I was actually thinking, don't keep coming in here and saying dumb ideas, because you're just wasting my time.
Yeah.
And none of this is going to work. And she came in and actually said, "Couldn't you call your church? I think they do foster care." And I thought, I actually don't know. I could maybe try that.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a contact number, called. Sure enough, there was an agency that did foster care in Sacramento, California, and they had foster care families in the Reno area. So I got in contact with them, and so she came and she took the baby home with her. I took our birth mom and took her home. I'm really like taking care of her too,
Yeah.
which I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it very well because I didn't know how to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was picking her up in the morning to go sign paperwork, and I just, promised her that it would be okay. I said, I promise it will be okay. I'll figure out a way, She just seemed super stable
Really?
and so calm.
Wow. What a
And-
strong woman to not let any of all this madness. I don't know. That's just.
It was almost like she trusted me that it was going to
Yeah.
be okay.
And some random lady taking the baby, and you're just like, we'll figure it out. And you're advocating for her and helping her process her emotions while processing your own emotions, while trying to protect Elijah and not knowing where he's going and
Right.
trying to figure out all the legal and all of that stuff. You navigated all of that by yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then I didn't even have a place to stay. So the nurses said, well, you could try Ronald McDonald House.
Oh.
So whenever they say, do you want to round up? I always say, you bet I do.
Oh, yeah.
So I stayed at Ronald McDonald House that night. And then I woke up in the morning and picked her up, and we went to an office for her to do signing. And so during the course of the conversation, they say, they're kind of checking things off. There's no Native American heritage, right? And she said, no, there is. So a very small, it was great-great-great-grandmother, I believe, so 132nd from the Blackfeet tribe. And they actually had 3 Breakoff tribes as well. And and the other thing that was also kind of crazy is that they had said to me, you'll just be there for 2 days. So I'm leaving on Sunday. So I'm thinking I'm coming home on Tuesday. So I didn't really like pack a lot of stuff. I'm thinking Tuesday, I'm telling my kids and my husband, I'll see you on Tuesday, you know. But that was not the truth. I didn't get home for 2 weeks because the ICPC office did end up requiring permission from all 4 of those tribes. And they were very slow. This is back in the day, I burned up $900 worth of phone cards just trying to find out what I needed to do because I was doing it myself. The only person that I talked to that was helpful was the person that did our home study here in Utah. And I want to give a shout out, Suzanne Stott. She's amazing. She did give me some guidance, but not a lot because it wasn't even her state. So it was about 2 weeks. We got permission and I got a flight. The pilot was super cute. He announced on the plane that, you know, we were going home with our little one, and that was really fun. And then I remember when we got off the plane, I could see all my kids like leaning and looking down the jetway. 3 children completely wrapped around us.
Yeah. How old were your kids?
So Josh was 11, and then Taylor was 10, and then Lauren was 5.
Oh, so cute.
So we got home. It was so, people had decorated like the garage. He's home and so is she, or she's home and so is he.
Yeah.
And then after everybody kind of went to bed and settled down, it was just Jack and I and Elijah. And I said, you know, do you want to hold him? And because he hadn't had a chance yet. And I remember his words too. He said, well, he is as cute as a bug.
Aww.
And they've been the best of friends ever since.
So when you opened your doors, what was your vision for your agency?
My vision was that everyone would feel supported and that they would be able to focus on the things that were the most important, which are the relationships. So to take any of the bumps out that we could, there are still bumps. Adoption's bumpy, but to be able to take out all of the bumps that we could and just to nurture those relationships so that, because those relationships are going to go on and on and on. I mean, my birth mom is always my birth mom and always Elijah's birth mom. And you know, his birth family is always our family. So that's a relationship that goes on and on and on. Adoption to me is not separating people. It's not a separating act. It's a joining. It joins families together and they become yours.
So when you were taking care of her and like seeing her, all of her needs, and that she was just doing this completely alone with no advocate, no help, like at what point in this process did you think to yourself that like this needs to be different for birth moms?
It was probably after, I mean, I felt bad, but again, I was super ignorant. So I didn't realize that she hadn't had any counseling and counseling could have been helpful for her. And I think I was in kind of so much of a panic that I didn't really consider that until I got home.
Because you also didn't have an advocate. You were also there by yourself and navigating your side of things, which was so big in itself. So it probably took you getting home to like process, like, wait a second, like, why didn't she have more?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do you think your agency approaches things differently with relationships? And because you were talking about relationships and helping create those.
I think we try to help prepare people for all of the, you know, the emotions and the things so they're not totally caught off guard. And also, one of the other things that I didn't mention either is that we've always felt like adoption funds were really sacred money. I mean, we sold things. We sold, you know, a motorhome. We sold a car. We put things on our visa. We didn't just have cash sitting around to do an adoption. If we would have lost that money, that would have been the end for us. We would have not been able to adopt again. And I know that there are lots of families out there that are like that. And so one of the things that set us apart for years and years and years until 20 until this last year actually, is that we always knew those funds were sacred and they would always be fully refunded if there was a failed placement. And so the family did not have at-risk fees. They could move forward with us knowing that if their birth mom decided to parent her baby, that though the care we had given her would be taken care of by us, and they would have a full credit towards being able to try again. And that, I feel like, has given families a lot of peace, knowing that they can try and that they won't lose those sacred funds.
What do you think sets you apart from other agencies of how you support your birth moms?
I think one of the other things is that we're really careful with matching, and that's your specialty that you're so good at. And the reason that matching is important, I mean, it's obvious. You're bringing these two groups of people together, and so matching is so key in the whole process. And part of matching is making sure that everybody has good information. You know, some agencies actually will send out an application to an expectant mom, and they'll send a pile of profiles with the application so she can choose a family, but there's no information given. A lot of agencies also will just call a family and say you're matched, and they haven't had the opportunity to say yes or no on the situation.
How successful could those be, you know? Like, that seems like...
Yeah. And so I think everybody should have the opportunity to say yes to each other. The expectant mom should be able to say yes. The adopted family should be able to say yes, so you have a solid match.
One of my favorite things is telling birth moms that these families picked them. And the looks on their faces is just, it's so exciting for them to know, like, because I think some birth moms do come from looking at other agencies and they see maybe lots of families or whatever. And it's different with us because they know that these families picked you. I'm not just throwing random families at you. Like, this is pretty special because you guys pick each other. And that, I don't know if any other agencies have that. Like, I know a lot of adoptive families who just get a random placement that they hadn't even heard of, you know? So that's special and unique, I think, for us.
I love too how maybe you could talk about how sometimes moms don't know if anybody will want their baby. Yeah. Which always breaks our hearts. You know, sometimes moms are like, they want my baby? Does anybody want my baby? And that makes us so sad.
Yeah. Like you were saying, the match process is so important. And that's why we try to get as much information as we can. And they're always so excited to see whether they have 3 profiles or 9 profiles. They're just so excited to see that these are the families that want the same openness as you, that want, you know, all the things that you're looking for as far as you know. They are on board with that also. And like, there's so much more that goes into it with due dates and race and drug exposure. Like, it's so nice for birth moms to feel chosen and to feel like, oh, like some of them get so concerned that, oh, I've been smoking my whole pregnancy, like nobody's going to want that. And they see like, no, they have these families who said yes to you and they're comfortable with that and they're on board with that. And I think them just hearing it and feeling it is so comforting to them and bonds them to those families too, more than maybe they would have been without knowing that.
So there's so much peace and comfort that comes from them knowing that that family will be there for them no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. If you could go back and give yourself one bit of advice during your adoption journey, what would it be?
Oh, such a good question and a hard question.
Sorry to throw that at you.
Maybe not to be so fearful, but that's because hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, sure.
I was so afraid that it wasn't going to work out. I was so afraid that I wouldn't find our son.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid that I was worried about his birth mom. I was worried about the pain that she would have. And I don't think I would change that at all, because that's important. It's important for families to recognize the sacrifice and the pain that a placement given to them causes. And I also remember, worrying about Elijah too. Why wouldn't he miss her? Of course he would miss her.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I would change anything, because it all unfolded the way it was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, all the things that were supposed to happen happened. And I remember one time he was playing t-ball, and he was on third base. And the person that was batting hit the ball. And the coach said, "Elijah, run home." And he ran to me.
Oh.
And I was so grateful that I was his home, and have still been able to be his home. Such a blessing, and just an immeasurable gift in my life and in the life of our family. We're so grateful for him.
That is so sweet. Oh my gosh. At the end of every episode, we thought it would be fun to do a little segment to get to know everyone we interview, and we're going to ask the same 3 questions to everyone. So the first question is, what's something unique about you that most people don't know?
Okay, so one thing is that I know how to catch fish with my hands.
Whoa.
I know you didn't know
I
that
did
about
not know
me,
that.
did you? I
No.
know. My husband jokes and says that he had to catch me and put my shoes on, and so to marry me. So anyway, I know how to catch fish with my hands.
That is impressive. You learned that from your dad, I'm guessing.
I did. You're
That's
so
so
smart.
cute.
Yes, I love my daddy.
I love that.
Shout
She's
out
a
to
daddy's
him.
girl. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, second question. What is your favorite form of self-care?
I would say gardening, or once in a while I get to squeeze in a facial. So probably that, gardening.
I love that. And facials.
Yeah, and a facial
Didn't
once
know
in
you
a while.
liked
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
I love that. That's okay. So the last one is, what's your favorite comfort show or movie?
Okay. So I have a couple. There's not very many movies that I'll watch over and over again, but I will watch Home Alone over and over again. And I do like
the first one, or
the first one.
Just
yeah.
the first one.
The other ones kind of get
the
on
other
my
ones
nerves,
are not
but
great.
Yeah. So Home Alone, I'll watch over and over again. Has so many great things about it. And then I also love a rom-com, like I love Notting Hill, and I think that are just so funny. So yeah.
Oh, cute. I love that. We can take this out, but my son, my 10-year-old, the first time he ever had a laugh attack that I saw was he was watching Home Alone.
Really?
And he was like 5. So now that movie holds a special place in my heart, because it reminds me of him, because I'm like, oh, he thinks this is so funny.
That is so cute.
That's a good one. We watch that one a lot.
Lots
Even
of
when it's
belly
not
laughs.
Christmas, we watch it.
Oh, good.
My kids love it. So
awesome.
That's a good one. Okay, that's a wrap on our very first episode of Speaking of Adoption.
Are you going to say we're so excited about what's ahead?
Yeah, but I got to say that first.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, pointing and squinting.
I'm like, what's she pointing at?
We just want you to have plenty of outtakes.
There's going to be a lot.
Yes.
Okay, that's a wrap on our very first episode of Speaking of Adoption. Huge shout out to Yvonne for being here and sharing her heart and vision with us today. We're so excited for what's ahead, stories from birth moms, adoptive families, and just the people who make this community what it is. Our hope is that this podcast becomes a place where people feel seen, supported, and a little less alone in whatever part of the adoption journey they're on.
So excited. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We did it! Yay! Bye!
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. Adoption is very personal and looks different to each family. We'd love to hear about your own personal experiences and stories. Please email us your story at info@aguardianangel.com, and your story might be featured in a future episode. If you like what you've heard today, please leave a review and help us spread the word by sharing this podcast with your loved ones. Speaking of Adoption drops every other Tuesday. Subscribe today so you never miss a single episode. Speaking of Adoption is brought to you by at Guardian Angel Adoptions. If you or someone you know is experiencing an unplanned pregnancy and you need to talk or get unbiased advice, our friendly and helpful staff is available to talk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even on holidays. If you need help, guidance, legal advice, or otherwise, please don't hesitate to text us at 206-360-0020 or call us at 855-402-6435. You can also visit our website at guardianangeladoption.com. We look forward to speaking about adoption with you next week.